Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay. For me, Notre Dame is about, and I'm not a branding major, I study history, but Notre Dame is about the spontaneous joy of seeking excellence. And I want to tell you a little bit about, kind of my life story getting here and what I found at Notre Dame that is, I think, a little bit different than what I'd found anyplace else in my life. First of all, one thing to know about me is from the moment I was growing up, I was going to be a lawyer. I wasn't going to be an academic. My dad would tell me bedtime stories about the people that you didn't know were lawyers, but actually were. They included Robin Hood and the Lone Ranger. And I should have known at that time that these were fictional characters, and that should have raised a bit of a red flag for me. But it didn't. I was going to be a lawyer. But then a bug hit me, and a bug in two senses. I'm from Bakersfield, California, and there's actually a disease travels by spore in Bakersfield called valley fever. I caught valley fever, and the way it works is you lie in bed, you think you can get up, you take 2 steps, and you're out of breath. You can't do anything. Hits you, some people harder than others, for about a year. At that time, it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. I was out of commission for 6-8 months. But during that time, my brother would put on CDs. They were CDs of the Teaching Company, which had just gotten started, great minds of the Western intellectual tradition. And on the CD would be a professor, I still remember his name, Michael Segru, talking about Plato. My brother never got through it. He would just be brushing his teeth, Plato, and then he would walk out the door, and then I couldn't get out of bed. It was just, can't turn it off. So one of the great ways to inspire passion is always to restrain somebody, confine them in bed, and then let the power of auto-suggestion work upon them. It worked for me, but I was still going to be a lawyer. So I went to university. I went to Stanford University, and probably the best thing that happened to me at Stanford, so many good things happened, but one was a professor that I ran into, and everybody, I think, has a professor in their life that inspires them. Mine was a professor by the name of Brad Gregory. He's a brilliant Reformation historian, but he had a special skill with students. No matter what they were talking about, whether they were talking about West Virginian coal miners, whether they were talking about the way the Bible was constructed, he listened to them. He thought what they were saying was important. And he was very special to our history department because of that. On the last paper that I wrote for him, he wrote, "If the law doesn't work out for you, look into history. I think we have a place for you." And I thought, well, you know what? That's great for history, because the law is going to work out for me. I went off to, actually, Notre Dame stole 2 of the kind of grand figures in my life at this period of time, and I was very embittered against Notre Dame. One, they took our football coach. And secondly, they took Brad Gregory. So, Brad Gregory came here to Notre Dame at the same time that I graduated. I went off to law school. And when I was off at law school, I saw some things. It was Harvard Law School. I saw a great kind of university community, which I had not really seen before. I saw students playing viols instead of violins and violas. Nobody played as a viol in the last 200 years. I saw Gilbert and Sullivan operetta groups. I saw them seeking that spontaneous joy of excellence. But I still was saying, you know what? As much as I love philosophy, as much as I love what I had learned on those tapes, I'm still going to be a lawyer. That's what I am. During one of the summers, I was walking through my dad's law office, and I ran into a fellow, and I'll call him Jacob Marley, because in many ways he was sort of like the figure in Charles Dickens's book, A Christmas Carol. He was Jacob Marley, the business partner, who came back as a ghost. And he was a fellow who would actually just sort of slunch over. He was about 5 feet tall, although he was probably 6 feet if he were standing up. And I talked to him about my classes and some of the classes I had had at Stanford. And he rose up to be about 10 feet tall. And he started talking about Henry Adams and the conversion in medieval times from the Gothic to the Romanesque. And I mean, it was like he was invigorated with life. And then I saw him about 10 minutes after our conversation. He was back. He was crouched over. When I became a lawyer, I remembered the ghost of Jacob Marley. I enjoyed it. The people at my law firm were fantastic. But what I would do is go to the library, at night. And imagine that, UC San Diego, somebody's in lawyer clothes going through the library. That's not a picture that they see, every single day. I was living in San Diego practicing the law. So I was subscribing to history journals. I was going to the library, and I realized all of a sudden that, I was going to be that person in 10, 15, 20 years. There was that spontaneous joy for life. My dad loves being an attorney. It's not anything about that. It was history, ideas. Those had sparked my mind. So what did I do? I shot off an email to Brad Gregory, and immediately he replied from Notre Dame saying, I think you should look into history. You want to learn the languages, go off, get them down. And by the way, Notre Dame has a great thing going for it. So I came here. And what I've seen at Notre Dame is just everywhere. From the athletic department, go Irish for the Sweet 16 today. I mean, I am as enthused as possible about that. You see it when you see the Shakespeare Festival. You see everywhere that spontaneous joy of seeking excellence in the students. It's not necessarily about them. It's not necessarily always about where they're going to be 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. It's about the character and the community that they create. I've loved seeing that. I want to invite, finally, you to do, I think, a couple of things. One, see one of Morgan's soccer games that she's going to be playing. See that kind of that sense of life and joy that goes into that and the hard work. I also want you to see, next time you're at Notre Dame, or maybe if you're going to be here through the week, walk into the most notoriously dry-looking academic seminar you can find. I mean, something that just seems like chemical molecules, the 3 divine hypostases of Plato, something that you don't understand, you've never had a passion for. And then watch the people in one of those conferences, because most of them don't have that background either. They sit there and they encourage each other. We talk about a republic of letters in the humanities. There's something very similar in the sciences. They watch as each other pursue excellence. They see what each other are seeking. And I want to say, go and sit into one of those, because it is one of the most life-affirming experiences you can have as you see each other buoy it up. I think there's one thing that is just even at a higher plane, and that's what so many of you have done. I think you have either experienced that spontaneous joy of pursuing excellence at Notre Dame yourself, or possibly you've seen a child of yours go from somebody who's maybe anxious about their role in life to somebody who's 10 feet tall, and you've seen Notre Dame do that to them. I would just, to me, somebody who then not only turns around in life, they have success, and they say, I want somebody to have that for others. None of this happens without you guys. None of this happens without somebody saying, that's important. And I want to thank you for that. And I just Notre Dame is such a wonderful place, and none of it, absolutely none of it, happens without the people in this room.